No? Okay. So, Zechariah chapter, share it. No, I'm sorry, not that one. I don't know how many I have though. Yeah? Not that one. Not this one. Okay. Right. Come on.
Strike that out. You could,
Oh, it's there.
It'll be fine,
Hear
it'll be
it?
fine.
You can have it.
say no more.
Oh, huh? No, it's 2 pages, I'm sorry.
It's 2 pages.
Yeah, it's one, and that's all I have. Okay, that's all I think.
It's okay, we just listen.
Okay, you
Yeah,
can just
fine.
listen. Okay. You have your Bible, Zechariah chapter 6, verse 12. There. Okay, it says, Behold the man whose name is the branch, and he shall go up out of his place, and he shall build the temple of the Lord. Even he shall build the temple of the Lord, and he shall bear the glory, and shall sit and rule upon his throne. And he shall be a priest upon his throne, and the council of peace shall be between them both. Okay? Do you see branches with capital letters? Okay? And he's talking about Christ. The branch is Christ. And he shall grow up out of his place, and he, Christ, shall build the temple of the Lord. Okay? The Messiah, which is Christ, will come and build the temple of the Lord. Okay? Even he, Christ, shall build the temple of the Lord, and he shall bear the glory, and shall sit and rule upon his throne. Okay, now, he will build the temple of the Lord. Okay, do you remember that Christ says when they came over and complained after he cast out the people that were selling in the temple? He said, why do you do this, right? And then do you remember he said? Destroy this temple, right? Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I'll build it, right? And they said, what? You destroy this temple? It's been working on it for 45 years, you know, and you're gonna build it in 3 days? And he said, the Bible says he was talking about his body, right? Because they wanted to kill him. And this is why he said, destroy this temple. Because you want to kill me? Well, destroy this temple. Okay? So, in other words, Christ came to the temple in Jerusalem at that point. Now, was Christ, according to him, a temple himself?
Yes.
Yeah. He said, destroy this temple. He was talking about himself, right? Okay, so here he says, the man whose name is the branch, that's Christ. And he shall grow up out of his place, and he shall build the temple. Christ himself, he was the temple. He built a real temple. And another part, I don't have it here, but it says that the temple will be more glorious than the first one. And so, if the temple in Jerusalem, with the presence of Christ in it, won't it be more glorious than even Solomon's temple? Right? So this is what he's talking about. See? And then it says here, and he shall bear the glory, right, of the temple of Solomon. Okay. And it's greater than the temple of Solomon. Okay. But what does he say on John 1:14? And he became flesh. He became a human being. The Word became a human. And what did we see? What did we saw? We saw his glory. Remember? And we saw his glory. What kind of glory? like the only begotten of the Father, right? So see, that's what it says here. The branch, which is Christ, is called the branch because it came out of Jesse, the father of David. Remember, he says he is the root of David, and in other words, he's the son of David, but yet he's the root of David. The root of David was at the bottom, right? Gives life. So that's Christ. The root of David is Christ, right? But yet, when he became a human, he became the son of David, right? So this is why he's called the branch, because it came out of the root of Jesse, the father of David. In other words, Jesse would be his grandfather in this case, okay? And he says here, the council of, and he shall rule upon his throne. Okay, Christ at the end will reign upon his throne, and he says, and he shall be a priest upon his throne. Christ came, he became the sacrifice, he became the lamb, he was sacrificed. Once he's sacrificed, he becomes what? A priest, right? He becomes, once he comes and fulfills the part of a sacrifice, the lamb, then now is done. So now he goes into the second function, or next function, which is a priest. He went into heaven as our priest, and he is in heaven. He was there in the holy place as a priest, and then he's gone into the most holy place as a high priest. Okay? So that branch is talking about Christ. It's talking about Christ. It says, and the council of peace shall be between them both. Them both, the covenant that was made with the Father and the Son, God and Jesus. It says, you shall be, I shall be to you a father, and you shall be to me a son. And Christ became a son of God in the flesh. He became a son of God. Till God resurrected it from the tomb. When Christ was crucified, he died. And he said, into thy hands I commend my spirit. I put my life in your hands. And he died. And he had to wait dead till God will call him. And God sent an angel to wake him up. Hey, your father called you. And then God, the Father, gave life to Christ because Christ was dead. His humanity was dead. And this is where he became his father, because he was begotten. He gave him life at that point. So when he says here that the council of peace shall be between them both, the Father and the Son. That's a covenant from the beginning. From the beginning, in heaven, there was a covenant. The Lord or Jehovah, which is really the name that he uses, he created man. He says, I'm going to die for humanity, to redeem it. So he had to become a human in order to die. Otherwise, how could he die? So since he was going to be a human, he would be a son. And the divinity, other divinity, would be the Father. So this was it was a council that they had, a covenant they had between them both, what we call the Father and the Son. It says, Isaiah 11:1, and there shall come forth a rod of the stem of Jesse. See, now it says a rod, okay, of the stem of Jesse. A stem, I suppose it's a bigger branch that out of that branch came the rod, and the rod is Christ. Remember the rod of Aaron that budded? It was a dead rod, dry rod, just a stick. And when it was tested to compare it to the others, it bloomed, it gave leaves, and it even gave almonds. So Christ is the rod that came out of the stem of Jesse. Okay, and a branch shall grow out of his root. Okay, so out of Jesse came the branch, which is Christ. On verse 10, it says, And in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for a sign of the people. To it shall the Gentile seek, and his rest shall be glorious. See, the Gentiles will be redeemed through that rod, which is the root of Jesse. And when Christ came, he opened the door for the Gentiles. Now, salvation wasn't only for the Jews, it was open to the Gentiles, to Christ, because Christ descended from 3 women that were Gentiles. Rahab was Gentile. She was the great mother of Christ. Okay? And then you have the Moabite, Ruth. Also, she was a Moabite. See? So in the blood of Christ, there was Gentile blood. Therefore, he had the right to redeem the Gentiles, because he had a Jewish blood, but he also had from the woman Gentile blood. So he had a right to adopt the Gentiles. Now, it says here, so the Gentiles shall seek, and they will find rest in him. Okay, Isaiah 53:2. It says, for he shall, talking about the branch of Christ, for he shall grow up before him as a tender plant, and as a root out of a dry ground. He had no form nor comeliness, and when we shall see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. He is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And we hid as it were our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. He had borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we did esteem him as stricken, as smitten of God. Okay? He was despised, rejected. He was a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. He was despised, he says, and he borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we did esteem him as stricken. In other words, a stricken, the original meaning is he was a leper. That's what it really means. When this says stricken, the finger of God, the leprosy was the finger of God. It represented as the finger of God. Leprosy was like the finger of God. So here we treated him like a leper. We treated him like a leper. That you don't want to touch him, you know. Okay, stricken. He was stricken and smitten of God. Smitten and stricken is the same word. It means the same. Smitten and stricken. And when you see that Miriam was stricken with a leprosy. I forget his name. Remember Elisha's servant? The leprosy that was on Elijah was stricken in. What was his name?
Elisha.
Is a servant. Okay? So when he says that Christ was stricken by God, it's like he had a plague from God, cursed by God. But we looked at him like he was rejected by God. In spite of what he did, carrying our griefs and carrying our sorrows, we still saw him as being cursed by God. 53:10. It says, yet it pleased the Lord to bruise him. Yet it pleased the Lord to bruise him. To his own son, it pleased the Lord to treat him that way. See? It doesn't mean that he was happy to do it. It pleased him because by doing that, he was going to redeem humanity. And when you see that for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son for us, he knew that he was going to come and take the sins of the world. But it pleased the Father for him to do that, because by that he was going to redeem humanity. So it pleases the Father. Okay, yet, in spite of all that, it pleased the Lord to bruise him. He was taken from prison and from judgments. And who shall declare his generation? Huh? Who will declare his generation? By doing that, God has saved humanity. Whoever accepts Christ, how many were the descendants of Abraham that God promised him? He said they will be like what? Like the sand of the sea, right? Okay. So whose children were the Abrahams or Christ? Christ, of the seed of Abraham, was the one that was going to redeem and have children like the sand of the sea. See, so he says, "Who shall declare his generation?" You cannot count the people that will save through Christ. And speak unto the children of Israel, saying, "If any man of you, or you, I missed one out. Okay. In Hebrews it says, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who, Christ, for the joy that was set before him, endured the cross. So it pleased the Father, right, to treat Christ the way he permitted to be treated, right? There was the Father, but here it says that Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, him who for joy that was set before him endured the cross. So he was going to be crucified, he was tortured and all that. He tolerated it, he supported it, because he could see the joy that at the end he will get by saving us. That's the only way that we could be saved. So Christ found joy in the way he was treated and crucified, because he knows what was going to be gained by that. And the Father, it pleased him for letting Christ suffer what he suffered, because it pleased him, because that was the only way that he could have man, the sin, back with him. He could have humanity back with him. Okay? Now, this is for us. To him that overcometh, I will grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I also overcame and sat down on my Father in his throne. So Christ now sits in the throne with the Father, and therefore whoever accepts him and is saved with him, he's going to let him sit with him in his throne, like he's sitting with his Father on his throne. So he accomplished, by suffering, he accomplished to be back with the Father in his throne. Jesus, the Son of Mary, the divinity of Jesus was always divine. He was already had a throne, but now he's sitting there as the Son of Mary, because he conquered, he overcame Satan, he delivered us. Therefore, as a human, he has the right to sit with God. And we as humans, even though we're sinners, through his righteousness, we're going to have the right to sit also with him. Okay, in his throne. It says, 19:28, and Jesus said unto them, verily I say unto you, that you who shall follow me, in the generation when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, you shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. He's promising the apostles that they're going to sit with him and that they're going to judge the 12 tribes of Israel. Now in heaven, it says, round about the throne were 24 seats or thrones, and upon those thrones he saw 24 elders sitting, clothed in white raiment, and they had on their heads crowns of gold. And the 24 elders which sat before God in their thrones fell upon their faces and worshiped God. So there was one in heaven which we call Lucifer. And Lucifer was in heaven, but God says, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground? With this weaken the nations. For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God, and I will sit upon the mount of the congregation on the sides of the north." So the privilege that Lucifer had in heaven, by disobedience, he became Satan, he became the devil. And God is going to give the privilege to sinners that are under the dominion of Satan to conquer by the grace of Christ, and he will take him and put it into heaven in a place that even Lucifer did not have before. Because Lucifer cannot call God his father, not in the sense of humans, because humans are really his children, because he gives us life. We're dead. We are dead. So we have to be born again. And the only way we can be born again is through the divinity, to the grace of Christ, the life that comes from God through Christ. And this is why we were called the sons of God. We died as a sinner because we were condemned when we were born. We die, but we're going to have a new birth here in the spirit. And we will glorify when Christ comes. But we will owe our life to God because he helped us and allowed us to be partakers of the divine nature that Christ had. So we become very, very special to be in heaven. So there's that word called the branch, okay? And that represented Christ. Unfortunately, we have a group that is called the branch. And they say that the man was prophesied and there was a branch, which is not true. So